This is Business Anonymous. I started doing business since I was 18, full-time at least, but I've started doing business selling trading cards even when I was in school since I was 10 years old. I'm doing this solo podcast anonymously so that no one that I work with see this and that there's no conflict of interest. This is for business people and I'll share my philosophies, frameworks, thought processes, everything. Why I'm doing this solo podcast. So I started doing this around, I think 13 or 14 days ago. Today's episode 14, I think. And I've been doing one a day over the last 2 weeks. So there are actually many reasons why I decided to do this. And so I'm going to cover them today. First of all, no one knows that you exist. I think that in our business right now, the reason that why we're not at $1 million a year is probably because we don't do enough marketing. So for marketing, there are kind of like 3 primary actions that you can take. You can do outreach, you can do content, you can do ads. So outreach is like, for example, like cold emails, door to door, content, it's like YouTube, Instagram, and then ads is kind of like Google ads, Facebook ads. I would also count SEO under ads, as well for that, because it's one to many and cold. The problem is that right now, as we're doing this, I find that outreach and ads aren't scalable, and in the future, they're only going to get less and less scalable. And let me explain why. So if you think about it, content is the only form of marketing where you're reaching out to people that already know you. So it's the only warm type of marketing that you can do. Whereas outreach and ads, they are more towards people that aren't warm. So outreach, and I'm talking about getting new customers, by the way. So if you're thinking about referrals or existing customers, I'm talking about brand new customers. So outreach, it's always to strangers one-on-one, and ads is always like putting a Google ad or SEO where you're getting many people at scale, but they're all people who don't already know you. So as more time passes on, I think that in the future, because of AI, maybe like people will be able to get on a Zoom and pretend to look or be a different type of person. Like a filter that looks very realistic. And so a lot more scams will happen in the future, which means that online sales reps will have a harder time working for companies without a brand because people are not trusted. And from the company perspective, like from a business person perspective, this means that A, I either need to have a brand that people trust enough to get online with a sales rep on Zoom, or B, I need to basically hire in-person sales reps, which is going to be costly due to salary differences. And also, you have to pay for like transport costs and all of the other rental expenses that you have. So I think that's kind of like how the future will look like. And right now, I want to kind of like think ahead and do this prep to stop that. I don't have the skill set of content. So this is also why my commitment for 2026 is to do 52 longs and 156 shorts. The podcasting was actually something that I only came up with in January. So I didn't exactly write this down in my December milestone or goals for this year. But my commitment to myself is that this year I will publish at least 300 podcast episodes as well. So that's basically going to be almost one a day. And I don't want to actually make it one a day because I don't want to force myself to do a solo podcast episode if I feel like the quality won't be there, or if I'm really sick. Like, I'd rather just like not put it out there, even if no one listens, and even if this is like for my own record keeping. Next up, imagine if Mark Zuckerberg had something like this where he documented his thought processes, shared his stories, everything he learned from zero to multiple billions of dollars. Imagine like how valuable such a podcast or such a channel would be. So the way I see it, like I want to take this solo podcast to also be like from a starting point of $700,000 or $750,000 in revenue. If let's say I can grow the company to multiple of millions of dollars, I want to also like document this entire process so that other people can listen to it in the future and actually learn from it. If other people don't listen to it, then at least for me, at the very least, I'll be able to reflect back on my own experiences. And I think that it also have deeper impact on me. Like I will know more nuance. And then in the future, if I'm starting a second or third company after this, then it will be that much more valuable to me. I started doing business like it really depends like whether you're talking about part-time or full-time. But I started doing business full-time when I was 18 after high school, and I'm 25 now. So I've already wasted, quote, wasted 7 years of not documenting my experiences or stories. And I don't want the 7 years to become 14 years. So I also want to start now. And actually, like, I already started like doing part-time businesses. Like, I did e-commerce when I was 14. I did freelancing, like WordPress and SEO development when I was 14. I was selling trading cards, this game called Cardfight Vanguard, in grade school when I was 10 years old. So I've already been doing business for a while, but I think that I have not documented a single thing. And I am also like convinced that if I had documented stuff that I would be able to re-listen to or re-watch to motivate myself as well, I'm convinced that I'll be a lot further ahead right now. Like, I don't know the exact details, but I would say that if I started documenting everything when I was 18 publicly, right now at 25, my net worth or income or whatever would probably be at least 2 to 3 times higher in my opinion. Yeah. The next reason is that I don't have public authority right now. So we have no issues generating meetings, but as I said, they're all cold leads, strangers who don't know us. And I've really kind of like trained myself and developed a skill set up to the point where I can meet with someone and I can clarify why they're there, label them for problem, overview their past pains, and try to build rapport very quickly. But I always find it's so much of a hassle to meet someone and there's no trust. Versus for me, like for example, I've also like met doctors, where I do a lot of research on them beforehand. And so it's almost like when you walk into the doctor's office for a consultation, he has never met you before, but because you've done so much research on him, there's almost like that sense where you trust him and everything he says, you believe it. And sometimes I feel like when I give people, like information on web dev or SEO or business, there's like no trust. Like I almost have to first convince them to trust me before I can convince them to trust my advice. And whenever you speak to like the doctor or maybe someone that you've done a lot of research on, whatever they say, you really trust them immediately. You don't even need to like second guess their authority on the subject because you know where they worked at and everything, and they didn't even have to tell you. So that's something that I've gotten to experience a little bit of because, for example, in December, I got a sale, and this was basically the first and second meeting. I don't think that he did research on our company or me. And then on the third meeting, the onboarding, prior to the onboarding, he had searched for our company name, found the news article, read the article about me, and then on the onboarding, he made a comment to me about the article. And I think like the trust was also there. So that's something I'm hoping to replicate as well at scale for the future. Next up, I want to find others like me. So I've always kind of like found that for a lot of maybe like high school friendships or like family relationships for me, I find that there are very few people who have the level of interest or obsession in business that I do and other subjects. So the purpose of doing this for me is also to find hopefully more people like me where I don't have to feel bad about speaking about business. I don't have to feel bad about sharing my financial goals, income, net worth, and people kind of like giving an odd look like, why are you sharing this? Are you trying to make me feel bad? You know, they don't say it, but it's on their face. I mean, like some people do say it, you know. So I also don't want to actually, even unintentionally make someone feel bad when they're speaking to me. And I also don't want to make myself feel censored or inauthentic when I speak to others. So I think that the best way is that to number one, acknowledge that I'm not a good fit for a lot of the personal relationships I have now and like high school friendships, family relationships, and rather like I just need to find others who are as interested in me in business and other topics so that we would be a better fit. And then from both sides of us, neither one of us would have to like feel inauthentic, or like feel like we have to sacrifice ourselves or like change our behavior in order to fit in with what the other person's expecting. So that's kind of like the next reason why I'm doing this. Last but not least, the final reason I'm doing this to kind of like tie it back to actual business stuff now is that I spent like the last 2 years, starting from I think around June of 2024. So I started like training sales reps. And since then, I've trained approximately one, two, I think I've trained around 5 people in total ever. And right now we have 2 sales reps. And I would say that according to stats at the back of my hand, one of the sales reps that I trained got 0 sales in total. He only brought in appointments and leads. Second one also got 0, and he actually scammed us. If you watch the previous podcast, of $10,000. The third person, he brought in 3 or 4 sales, if I'm not mistaken, and he got the leads through like networking events, which the company, paid for, but I still end up making profit from that. So I suppose that's worth it. So she ended up bringing 3 or 4 sales, although he's a different issue. The fourth person, she brought in the most number of sales. She has, I think, in total, she's brought in like 20 to 30 sales in total over a year and a half. So she's like my biggest success case for me. And she's hardworking. She prefers to do in-person sales meetings. She only does web dev sales, not SEO sales and all of that. And fifth, last but not least, the most recent sales rep that I started training. Basically, started training her around 4 to 5 months ago. She hasn't brought in a single sale yet, but I'm giving her like a final 4 to 8 weeks of time to see if she'll actually be able to bring in at least 1 sale in that period of time. And if she does, I'll be super happy. Anyone who's trained someone in sales knows what I'm talking about. I'll be so happy and stoked and proud of her. If she doesn't, then I'll basically have to come in and start taking sales meetings myself, and maybe see if I'll obviously continue doing the content thing, but then also see if there's something maybe in my sales training where it's my fault that I can improve on. And I think that by making a solo podcast, I can create these artifacts where I can reflect back on to figure out okay, where did I go wrong in training someone else? Also, realistically, if I actually started making these solo podcasts 7 years ago, then at this point of time, I would have a long list of all of the roadblocks that I faced when I personally was doing sales, all of the tips and tricks that are very nuanced that I learned, the beliefs that I learned that really helped me. Then I'll be able to take all of these podcast episodes, upload it to ChatGPT, and get ChatGPT to give me like a mega SOP or mega document that I would then be able to remind myself or pass it on to the other sales reps that I tried to train. And that would have realistically made the whole training process a lot more easier. So I also do have that kind of regret with not starting earlier.